Peace and greetings. This is Artist. So, relationships and yoga, right? Relationships between a teacher and a student. Let's talk about it. So, there was a teacher that I knew of. Her name was Nancy Gilgoff. Peace and blessings be upon her. She's no longer in this physical realm, and she said once that you can. She said you should not date your students, but you can date a student. And when she said that, it made perfect sense to me. Okay, what is that saying? What is she say? She's saying that it's a beautiful statement because what it's saying is it's making sure that you are sure. Okay, be it whatever that means for you and the other person. Okay, so I'll give you an example of I'm going to use myself as an example as far as relationships and dating a student and how that works out. I have been teaching yoga for over 10 years, okay? And I had been teaching yoga for right around 10 years before I met my wife. I have in that time I have been teaching yoga, I have never met a person that came to my yoga class and took a class and then afterwards I dated them. That has never happened ever. I have dated someone and they eventually came to one of my classes. Yes, that has happened. But I know it has never been a scenario where a person came to my class, I met them at my class and I eventually dated them. That has never ever happened. And I did that intentionally. That was intentional for me because my intention is to treat everyone the same and do my best to provide the most benefit to the people that are in front of me. Okay. And work and do that in the most professional way possible. Right. To be, it's, it, I look at it almost as if, and you may think of it as an exaggeration, but a therapist or a doctor, there's certain ethics that you want to uphold, and even if someone is extremely attractive and their personality is extremely attractive, that doesn't mean you start running after that person and trying to pursue them. Oh, I might want to date. Your yoga students are not your dating pool. Is the big thing here. Your yoga students are not your dating pool. Okay? So when Nancy Gilgoff said you can date a student but not your students, it means what she's talking about is, and again I'm coming back to myself as an example, you can eventually, maybe it might happen. You, again, like I was saying, you might have a student that comes in, they're attractive, personality is attractive, it's great, but how do you react to that? So me, again, what this is what happened in my scenario, okay? So again, like I said, I've been teaching for over a decade, okay? I was um I had a studio for a short period of time in my hometown of Augusta, Georgia. And I had a student come in and I met this student. She was really nice, average, it's just like it didn't, you know what I mean? I met her just as a student, like everybody else. She was a student. And I looked at her as a student. She was a student of mine. And then So in at that particular studio, my studio, I had like a tea time. Like after class, I would make masala chai, and we would all sit around and drink tea and talk. Building community. And so one day, people were sitting and talking, and it just ended up being her and I. And so we're talking, and the conversation is really gelling. Like we are really there. I could feel like, okay, wait a minute. Now here's the thing. I made a pledge to myself that I will never pursue a student. I would never. I told myself when I first became a teacher that I would never do that. My teacher, AJ, shout out to AJ, Atma Bodhi Yoga. My teacher said that you want to make sure that you make that separation. Don't. He was very adamant about it. Like you have to be very careful with that because of the society that we live in. We have, yes, things are equal to a certain extent, but we have to realize that perception is reality. A lot of times, male yoga teachers have to be a little more careful. I'll get into that in a second. So anyway, I met her. We're talking. The conversation is really good, really nice. And then one day, she said something to me, and it was a little personal. It was a little like, okay, it was a moment where she expressed interest in me, and I liked her. I thought she was awesome. The more I got to talk to her, the more I really liked her personality. I mean, I was like, man, this woman man, she's awesome. And then she made a gesture that let me know that she liked me. She wanted me to know that she liked me in that gesture. So I got the message. She put the message out, I got the message, and she knew that I got the message. And at that moment, things changed between her and I. I no longer looked at her as just a student. She was now something different, right? It was now something different. And then we started talking, and within like 2 or 3 months, we were living together, and we've been married for 4 years now. Or we've been together for 3 years. We've been together for 4 years and married for 3.5 years. So discernment, waiting, being patient, not pursuing was the way that the relationship between a yoga teacher and a yoga student flourished. It was because of my base intention is always to apply what can I do to help benefit the students in front of me the most, right? And so it just so happened that her and I hit it off. That I dated, and I always tell people I dated one student. When people talk about dating students, I say, yeah, I dated one student, and she's now my wife. Out of the 10 plus years that I've been teaching, I've dated one student, and that student is my wife. So that's my view on relationships and yoga, like yoga teacher student relationship. And so talking about being a male yoga teacher, and so the majority of the students that I work with are females. Okay, that's just it's obvious, right? That it is what it is. The majority of the people that I work with are females, and there are certain things that I do that make the environment as comfortable as possible. Okay, and so I had, again, my first yoga teacher. He he gave me a perception of me. And you can call it, it might have been a off perception. I didn't let it affect me so much, but I did take what he said and analyzed it. But what he told me was, he said, you can be intimidating. He said, you're tall. And he literally said, you're a black man with a beard. You're a little intimidating. And I took a little offense to it, but there's reality to that. There's reality to that. Okay. Some people may feel what, and that was his perception. So I'm assuming that other people had that perception also. So that was one of the things that was always in the back of my mind. I think about it, good or bad, it's there, and I work with that. And so whenever I'm teaching a class, I'm always making sure that I am seen. Okay? I'm always making sure that I am in the eye shot of everybody in the room, be it male or female, right? It doesn't, I want to make sure that everybody sees me. Okay? That lends to a more comfortable situation for the people in the room. Okay? Dealing with um, adjustments, you know. Now, there's a situation where you have to think about, and we're talking about the majority of the time. Let's talk about the majority of the time. The majority of the time, men take advantage of women. The majority of the time, men take advantage of women. There are times when women take advantage of men and women take advantage of other women. Yes, that happens. I'm speaking from my perspective, and I'm most especially at this point speaking to men who teach yoga. This, again, I'm talking about statistically, it's more prevalent for male yoga teachers to have some type of some inappropriate interaction with a female student. That's the majority of the scenario situations. Therefore, therefore, what happens is that because you have these jerk creeper male teachers out here, these sick creep individuals out here, it makes it harder for other male teachers who are legitimate, kind, considerate male yoga teachers. It makes it a little harder for us. It is what it is, and I don't doubt, and I don't look, and I'm not mad at anyone, male or female, who comes into a yoga studio and is a little apprehensive when they see a male yoga teacher. I'm not mad at that because of the screwed up reputation that has been put on the quote unquote male yoga teacher because of all of these creepers out here. These guys out here running around with no shirts on, adjusting these women in inappropriate ways, taking advantage of these women's kindness and their vulnerability. Like it's ridiculous, and so it causes male teachers like myself who have morals and rules and actually care about the people that are in front of them. You don't mistreat people you care about. You don't physically, mentally abuse people you care about. So I'm not gonna go any more into that. So this is what those of us male teachers who are straight, up and up, And I mean straight as in sexual. I mean straight as far as in like we are not creepers. The non-creeper male yoga teacher, right? We 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 want to make our female students feel comfortable, right? We want to make our female students feel comfortable. And again, let me reiterate, if you're just coming in on this part, I'm working on statistics, and it tells us that the majority of the time it's male yoga teachers taking advantage of female yoga teachers. So, male yoga teachers, when you're adjusting a woman, here's something that I do 99.9% out of the time. Before you adjust this female student, even if you have had a conversation with her and you all, and first of all, and I'm gonna let me start from the beginning. Number one, when you have a student, male, I'm talking to male yoga teachers. You have a female yoga student, right? And you see in the class there's something that, you know what, if I adjusted her this way or that way, it would really help her pose, right? Don't do anything on that first time. Wait till you see her again. Okay, maybe the next time you see her, mention to her, hey, I was noticing when you do triangle, it could really help if you do this. Talk to her about it, da 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 da. And then maybe in the conversation, depending upon how you feel, say, hey, are you okay with adjustments? Are you okay with physical adjustments? And this is after you've seen her for a couple of times and talked to her. And then she is going to feel more comfortable and at ease to tell you no. She might say, I don't feel comfortable with that. And that's fine, because you all have a rapport. But the majority of the time, from my personal experience, it's, oh yeah, sure, yeah, thank you. It's thank you. Number one, uh, it's I'm telling you, 99.9% of the time, the women tell me, thank you for asking me. Right? They say thank you for asking me. So let's keep that in mind. So you ask her, she says yes. Cool. I'm okay with adjustments. Now you're in the studio, class is going on. You see, okay, she's in the particular pose that you had seen before, that you know that she could, if she was just adjusted her just a little bit, it would be cool. So you walk over. Now here's the thing: when you approach her, make sure that she sees you coming. Make eye contact with her. Make sure she sees you walking towards her. A little notion. She see, okay, and then you adjust her. These things, these are things that I do 99.9% of the time when I'm adjusting a female student, because I understand that 99.9% of the time, there a jerk male student has done something to a female student, and this person has either heard about it, knows about it, and is apprehensive about, number one, even being in a class with a man teaching, period. And number two, a man adjusting them in a yoga pose. So, men, guys out there, male yoga teachers, the non creeper male yoga teachers, just keep that in mind. Don't take it personal, because here's the thing: you don't know what she has been through. You don't know what she has been through, right? So listen, you know what I mean? You need to be look at your eight limbs. Look at your eight limbs, bro. And read those. It's going to tell you how to approach this. Approach it with number one. What's number one? What's the first of the eight limbs of yoga? What's the first one that they say? The first one is non-violence, ahimsa, keeping the peace, keeping thing not harming anybody, right? So let's keep that in mind, guys. When we're teaching yoga classes and we're working with females, let's keep that in mind. And again, I'm going to reiterate again: 99.9% of the time, it's a male yoga teacher doing some creepy shit to a female yoga student. And so This is the last, like a lot of this message was for us non-creepy yoga male teachers, right? Just be, just make sure that you're aware, because you don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable because of, we've already we're pushing a stone uphill. We're pushing a stone uphill. So let's be extremely mindful and be careful with our female yoga students. Sex sells yoga, right? That's where we are right now in the yoga world. It slowly crept there, and now we're full on, using it to sell yoga. Let's think about how this whole sexualization of yoga started, right? And it's a hard conversation to have. It's probably something that people don't want to talk about, or they may be dismissive about it. But let's get into it, okay? So it started when Westerners wanted to bring yoga to the United States. That's when it started. Now you can disagree with me all you want. You can say, it was going on in India before. But the thing about it was that India is a spiritual culture, right? And they mix sexuality and spirituality to a certain extent. And the sexuality is used as a tool to help tap into the spirituality, okay? And it's not at the forefront of the culture, but they understand its importance and it's a part of it. So when it the culprit, as I like to call it, and let me preface this by saying that I practice Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga. Um, I learned Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga from Manju Jois, the son of Patabi Jois. I love that practice. I love the some. I love some of the rules and regulations. That's why I don't. I've taken on my own form of Ashtanga Yoga. I practice and teach my own form of it, but that's beside the point. So I say that to say when Ashtanga is a lot of the reason why you have the over sexualization of yoga today. What happened was that these particular students, and I'm not going to put their names out there, but we all know who they are. These particular students, and it's not to throw shade on them or anything like that. And I'm just not going to mention their names, but they went to, and I met one of these people personally, so I know what I'm talking about. He told me this personally. So they went to India to learn about yoga. They wanted to know what it was to be a true yogi. They wanted to know about yoga. So they went to India and they were traveling around. And then they came across, or they met, or they saw Manju Jois giving demonstrations at a college. And they saw him, and he was doing Ashtanga. And they saw it and they were like, oh wow, we want to learn this. And so they asked him about it, like, hey, we want to learn this. And he said, well, pretty much what he and I talked to Manju. He talked to us about this. He told them, he said, I can't do it. I'm I've got a lot of stuff going on. I'm traveling around. Go see my father in Mysore, and he'll teach you. He'll work with you. And so these people, they traveled to Mysore, and they had a little pushback from Manju at first, or from Patabi Joyce at first, because he didn't necessarily want to teach them. But long story short, they eventually convinced him, and he started teaching them Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga. This is where the over sexualization of yoga started. Okay. And again, throwing no shade on these two people who first met these two first Westerners who met Patabi Joyce. But what let me and this is what happened, okay? They had all of the best intentions. I know both of these people. I know one of them personally, and I know of the other person. Both of these teachers are highly regarded, well respected teachers, okay? They brought the practice to the West. Once they introduced it to a large group of Westerners, that is when the problem really started to that's when they brought it here, it just popped. And this was right in the early 70s, late 60s, right? And so you had that kind of still had the leftover hippie kind of culture, free love kind of culture. So that all got uh, influence. That was part of some of the influence of some of the teachers who were learning Ashtanga from Patabi Joyce and learning it from these two particular people who came. And these two particular people started teaching people, and then more people started coming and learning from Patabi Joyce. And then from there is where all of your vinyasa yoga comes from. All of the Bikram, Jivamukti, um, Ashtanga, all anything that says vinyasa, that's where it came from these folks in the late 60s, early 70s, coming and bringing it to the United States. And so this is where the over sexualization started. Okay, it started in with little things. There was there was an issue with Patabi Joyce. People said that he and it if you look at some of the videos, it's very extremely questionable. Um, and then you have uh, people when you have a large group of people. In that large group of people, you're going to have some creeps. It is what it is. You're going to have some perverts, and without the proper understanding of the eight limbs of yoga, if you just start learning asana, it's going to go to your head. It's going to feed your ego. It's going to inflate you, make you think and feel that you're better than other people. It's going to make you look at your physical body more, look at other people's physical body more. If you don't have those eight limbs of yoga to rein you in, if you're not using precaution, right? The eight limbs of yoga are there to help us to stay in control of what's going on. Ashtanga and yoga in general is introduced asana first. And I just thought about that. It kind of sounds kind of funny. It's ass first, asana first. We want to introduce, you want to learn, you want to look at meditation. You want to look at also, in addition to it, you want to look at, in addition to the asana, but you want to look at working with your mind and calming your mind down, right? That's why you have this over sexualization, because your people get into these rooms, it's super hot, you don't have a lot of clothes on, everybody's sweating. And if you don't have proper mental training, right? If you can't practice pratyahara and brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is to walk in the path of the divine, and it also means celibacy. Pratyahara is sensory withdrawal, withdrawing your senses, paying attention to what's going on with you and not everything else that's going on around you. Just those two things alone will prevent a lot of the issues we have going on in the yoga community right now with these creepy ass yoga teachers. And I'm going to say male yoga teachers because I've only heard maybe one or two female yoga teachers, but the majority of it is men, male men. And I did a video previously about that. So the over sexualization of yoga started, in my personal opinion, with Ashtanga yoga. And it's not throwing shade. I like Ashtanga, it's a great practice. But Look at the word Ashtanga. The word Ashtanga means 8 limbs. What are the 8 limbs? Study those 8 limbs, and we won't have all of these problems with these weird yoga teachers, right? If you study these 8 limbs, and I'm speaking to students now, also study the 8 limbs of yoga, and it'll prevent a lot. It'll help you see these bullshit yoga teachers. You'll be like, wait a minute. According to the 8 limbs of yoga, one of these is brahmacharya, celibacy. Why are you cracking sex jokes in the middle of a yoga class? That doesn't seem like it matches up with the 8 limbs of yoga. That doesn't seem right. You know what I mean? So take it upon yourself, students. Like read those 8 limbs and match it up against these yoga teachers that are here. Are you living the 8 limbs of yoga? Um, getting into yoga teachers. If you're a yoga teacher, and I'm not throwing any shade on you. I'm not trying to say but if you don't know the 8 limbs of yoga, take a look at them. Take a look at the eight. If you're a yoga teacher and you're not aware of the 8 limbs of yoga, I highly recommend you take a look at them. Take a look at them. Read them. Okay? It's our foundation as yoga teachers. That's our foundation, the 8 limbs, right? Patanjali gave that look, here, the 8 limbs are going to help you to keep from driving off of the cliff. You're driving in a car and you're going up a mountainside, and there's guardrails and there's yellow lines in the middle of the road to keep you in the lane to make sure that you're not going to go out of bounds and possibly kill yourself or hurt yourself or someone else. That's what the 8 limbs of yoga are. The 8 limbs of yoga are the guardrails and the yellow lines in the middle of the highway to keep us in our lane. To keep us in our lane, right? So where do we how do we combat this over sexualization of yoga? How do we combat that? We combat it by studying, reading, and knowing and living. Watch me here, living to the best of our ability, because nobody is perfect. I'm not saying I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I have my faults, right? But to the best of my ability, I'm working on them. I'm not going to step out of bounds. That's the whole thing. I might have a thought of anger, like, ooh, this particular person really, really, really made me angry. But you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to speak on it. I'm going to be calm, and I'm going to think about maybe what can I do next time to keep this from happening, right? I'm going to bring it internal. And if it's something I have to address with the person, I'll address it with the person. But first, I'm going to keep it internal. I'm using those guardrails of the 8 limbs. Someone lashes out at me, I'm not going to lash out back at them. Why? Ahimsa. I'm trying to keep the peace. No, I'm not going to. Ahimsa is nonviolence. The opposite. Ahimsa is the opposite of violence. The word means opposite of violence. What's the opposite of violence? The opposite of violence is peace. I'm trying to keep the peace. I'm not going to argue with you right now. I'm not going to argue because you're upset. So therefore, I'm going to just listen to what you say and okay, and then wait until you are calm and address it, or just not even address it at all. Let you sit on that and let you live with that, right? So back to the point, the over sexualization of yoga. We fight it by looking at the 8 limbs of yoga, right, and living those 8 limbs of yoga. So, any questions, comments, or concerns, you know what to do. Until then, my friends, peace.